Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, or welcome here if you are new. Today we are going to be making this really spooky Hocus Pocus spellbook along with the black flame candle. And I feel like this is a long time coming. If you know me personally, you know how much I love Hocus Pocus. And so the fact that I finally have my own spellbook for some Halloween decor this year, I am just really excited about that. So to get started with the book, you're just going to want to go to like a thrift store and get the biggest book you can possibly find. I wanted mine to be wide enough, but also tall. I know it's not that thick, but my book is about 2 inches thick, which was good enough. If I could find one any thicker than that, I probably would have got that. But I picked this book up for just $1. And then I will be using this air dry clay that I picked up at Walmart. And I'll be using the clay to form all of the 3D images that are on this book. What you're going to want is a picture of the actual book so that you have some kind of reference to know the shapes that you want to form. But right now, the first thing I'm doing is forming where all of the stitch marks will go. The next thing I'm doing along the spine is just some like little bumps. I think they might be fingers like on the actual book, but I'm basically just rolling some pieces to add some bumps along the spine. Now I'm making his eyeball, and if you want to just buy an eyeball and cut the back off so it's kind of flat, you can definitely do that. I rolled a ball and then smashed down the sides a little bit to make it more of a mound rather than a ball, and this will really give it that eyeball shape. The next thing I'm making here are all of the snakes that will be on the book. I actually had no idea that there were snakes on the book until I looked really closely at the book for making this project. So the first thing I'm doing is making a big rectangle, like a flat rectangle that's the length of the book. And then there will be a little snake that sits on top of it that's also the same length as the rectangle. So that's what I'm doing first. And then I will be making the snakes that are sitting in the corners of the book. I'm hoping you'll be able to see what I'm doing here because I'm not making this just like one snake. I'm basically making little rings that are all on top of each other and then with a snake neck and a snake head. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to go over all of the snakes that are on the book and just poke them with a toothpick. When I'm looking at the picture of the actual spell book, all of the snakes have tiny little dots all over them. Next, you'll want to take a sharp knife and run it down where you're going to be doing all of the stitches. I feel like this is a really crucial part to make it look really similar to the book where it has like the opening and then the stitch marks will go over the top of them. The next thing I'm making is the little closure that goes over the eyeball, and I'm just going to put this to the side and let it completely dry before I attach it. I'll let it air dry overnight, and then I will use some hot glue to attach it over the eyeball tomorrow. Now for the fun part, I've actually made a spell book years ago. It was like a Dollar Tree Halloween spell book that I made. And I'm using the same technique that I used there, where you get some Mod Podge, a paper towel, and you just glue this on to the book. So this is what's going to give it that leathery, creepy look to it. If I could go back, I don't know if I would use Bounty paper towels, or at least not this kind where there's a bunch of bumps. I might have rather have used something that was just like completely flat, because some of the bumps do show up here at the end. You'll see that. However, it might be cool and creepy and add some extra texture. So it's really just up to you what kind of paper towel that you use. But I'm basically just ripping little pieces off. I'm first going over with Mod Podge, putting the paper towel down, putting some more Mod Podge over the top, and then I will use my fingers and kind of like swirl it around, and it kind of lifts up the paper towel and rips it a little bit. Those little things will add a lot more texture to the book. I also folded a couple pieces over in half, so it gave it just some more dimension and just gave it more of a leathery, creepy look to it. Now I'm painting the eyeball, and I'm just using a green color and then a black pupil, but I also go over it with a little bit of a gray that I have for the snakes. I'm just adding a little bit of gray lines in there and just giving the eye some dimensions. So as the first layer was drying, I went over it with some gray, and then I also went over it with a little bit of white dots. I don't think that I filmed the white dot part, or when I went around the eye with black. I feel like that made the whole eye look different. So once your colored eye is completely dry, that's when I would suggest to go around with a really tiny brush and just add a black circle around the eyeball. With some black paint, I will be painting the little latchet that goes over the eyeball. Just paint the entire thing black. It will also have some gray that will go over the top of it, but I'm first going to paint it all the way black, and then I'm also going over all of the stitching area. I'm going to first paint that black just so when I do cover it with brown, you can kind of still see the black in between the stitch marks, which makes it really cool. So go over that with black, and then also paint all of your snakes black. Once the black is completely dry, I am now going over really lightly with a gray color. Okay, now for the eyelids, what you're going to want to do is just rip off little pieces of paper towel, and I actually folded it over to give it more of like the shape of an eyelid that you would want, and that way it's really flat. I wouldn't use like ripped paper across the eyeball. You'll want to use a flat surface. Get a round piece, fold it in half, and then use that sharp edge to make your eyelid. So I'm going to Mod Podge the bottom or just around the eyeball, stick the bottom lid on, Mod Podge over the top, and then do the same for the top lid. I will have all of the paint colors I'm using listed in the description box below, so just go there for reference. But I felt like there wasn't one color that I could use that would make the book the correct color. So these are the 3 colors that I am mixing together. So I'm using 2 browns and then this khaki color, just a little bit of that to make the orangey brown color the book is. And then you're going to see how I highlight it with some more khaki, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. But basically you're going to cover the entire book with this color, avoiding all of the snake areas, but I am also going to paint over the top of those ridges where I will be making the stitch marks. So using that same brown color that I mixed, I'm just adding a little dot of the khaki and then just kind of mixing it lightly in with the brown to lighten up the color a lot. And then I'm using that paint to go over and highlight the book. So all of the areas between the ridges, I am going to be highlighting it. It just gives it that much more of a 3-dimensional look. Now for the stitching, I am just using some gold puffy paint. I wasn't sure how the gold was going to turn out and I didn't love it. I still would use this puffy paint because you're wanting that 3D look, and that's what this does. This will dry 3D, but I go over at the end with just the orangey brown color that I showed. That color I will go over the top of the puffy paint, and it makes the stitching look a lot more realistic than just this gold color. As I'm putting this on, it actually dries completely different. It looks okay as I'm putting it on, but it dries just really sparkly, and I wasn't a big fan of that. You definitely can leave it if you want to, but I decided to go over it with some paint, and it really was a simple fix. I actually squeezed a little bit of that puffy paint in a circle on the latchet because there is some kind of stone that sits right there, and then I'm just hot gluing this over the eye. Now, if you want to be a little extra, you can get these downloaded off the computer. I will have the link for these in my description box below, but these are 2 of the spells that are talked about in the movie Hocus Pocus. So I'm just gluing them into the front pages of my book. So it'll be like the cover and then the front page. But before I do that, I am just lighting the sides on fire, just little pieces at a time, and then blowing them out right away, just to give it that really creepy edge. And then I'm going to be Mod Podging this into the book. Now moving on to the black flame candle. This was a really simple DIY. What you will need is some just white tissue paper. I have 2 pieces here. You don't need 2, you only need 1. But you want to cut a piece of tissue paper off the same size as regular printer paper. And then you are going to tape the top and the bottom of the tissue paper to this paper because you are going to run this through your printer. So make sure that you have it on the correct side so that this printout will print on the tissue paper and not on your regular paper. But I will also have this linked in my description box to where I got this downloaded. And this is just a free printable. I actually found this website that gave a full tutorial on how to make a black flame candle. So that's what I'm going off of. But again, I will have this linked in the description box below. The next thing you're going to need is a candle, and you will want a flameless candle, but it needs to be wax. It can't be plastic, otherwise this will not work the same. So what I'm first doing here is I'm crinkling up the paper that I just printed and then flattening it out. I will cut off the bottom so that it fits to my candle, and then I also kind of had to cut some of the top off because of the shape of this candle. But I don't think I mentioned, I did pick this up at Walmart, and this is like the tallest and fattest one that I could find. Once you have the paper where you want it, all you are going to do is heat this up with a hair dryer and let it just absorb into the wax. It happens really quickly. You'll just see the tissue paper will blend right into the candle. And when you're completely done with this, there's no difference. Like the candle and the tissue paper are now one. The next thing I'm doing is just using some black paint. I'm painting the flame black just because, of course, this is the black flame candle, and my kids had no idea that this was a fake candle. So when I had it lit and they could see that the flame was black, one of my kids looked a little bit scared because I think he thought that it was like a real black flame candle. But in person, you really can tell that the flame is black. And then the last thing I'm doing, just because in the movie it's really creepy with like all of the drips, I'm just lighting a few different candles over the top and letting the wax just drip down the front. Okay guys, well that's everything for this video. Thank you so much for watching. This was one of my favorite videos I think that I've ever made. If you want some more Halloween inspiration, I have tons of videos linked below in my description box. And if you haven't yet hit that red subscribe button, make sure you do that, and we will see you guys in the next video.